Hi, I'm Dean Nash. I'm a vocal coach, and this is Vocal Coach Chats. With me I have Vanessa Heinitz, who is a professional musician, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I've been working as a full-time musician since about 2014, both on ships, like locally and internationally, as well as the local Sydney scene and a few other places. But usually they're 6 nights a week on the cruise ships, or 5-6 gigs a week back home, just over the weekend rather than spread out through the week.
Performing 5 or 6 nights a week can have a huge strain on the voice, particularly if you're not using it correctly. And a massive conversation I have with my students all the time is around vocal health and how you actually manage to gain and sustain the stamina to perform that often and high energy shows. So what are your main tips for maintaining good vocal health?
My very first time that I got on a ship, I went back to my singing teacher to sort of ask for tips, and the biggest takeaway I got from it was it's the talking. The singing, for the most part, singing is a controlled act, so you're using your diaphragm and it's much easier to maintain that. However, when you talk, we tend to get lazy, especially if you're in a loud room or the music's loud and you're talking over the music, so we tend to yell and strain our voice rather than doing the same thing that we do. Like, rather than, my teacher, her advice was, if you're in an area and you're talking to someone, talk as if you're singing. Take a deep breath and project, don't yell. And on the ship I get 1 day off a week, so I basically, on that 1 day, I tend to not really venture out too much to ensure that I can get the most vocal rest. I don't sing at all on that day. I try not to talk too much.
That's such a huge thing as well, is just diaphragm breathing. One thing I say to my students all the time is that eventually it becomes muscle memory and you stop breathing any other way, and it's really important to get to that point, particularly if you are going to be performing regularly, because if you're breathing shallow and you are kind of talking and yelling from the throat, then it's going to have a huge impact in your overall vocal health all the time. So it's best to really work on that diaphragm right from the get-go.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the other thing, and the lead into that, working on cruise ships, right? Like it's very much a show must go on kind of methodology. How do you handle that when you get sick?
That happens every single time. When I am singing is just being aware of what my voice can and can't do. So on my most recent one, I spent about 3 weeks sick and I kept losing my voice from coughing. And so there was a good couple of weeks where I couldn't sing about 1/3 of my repertoire, right, because it hit a part of my voice that was going to cause damage. And so instead of pushing it, I just mostly stuck with songs in a more comfortable range. There were some songs that I completely changed the key and changed the way I perform them. If you do cough and lose your voice, you kind of get parts of your voice back. So you have your low end first, and then you get like your head voice, which you can do softly. It's the part that's in the middle that it takes the longest to recover. But the biggest thing I can say is just don't sing the songs that are going to cause you strain. If there were certain songs I was like, I can't do that, sorry, like I just had to say no, I did, or I had to change the way I sang them. That was the main thing, is knowing if it's a song that I normally would hit in full voice, but I can't hit full voice, but I can switch to my blend, then that's what I'll do. Yeah. So it's, be creative with the way you do it.
That's actually perfect advice. I think a lot of the time when you're singing and you're not at your best, I think always kind of pull back on volume and like trying to get power into that mix.
But
and
keep
just
the diaphragm breathing.
Keep the
That's more important.
Double down on the diaphragm breathing. You know, focus on tone.
You don't have to belt everything out. Knowing where your voice is, when to be nice and close to the microphone, when to pull away a little bit. It's more about learning all your other techniques, to just pretty much doing them a little bit more so than you normally would.
Yeah, exactly. If you spend most of your time just focusing on your belt, you're gonna have a bad time. You're only gonna be good when you're at your absolute best, and that's problematic. When your body is your instrument, it's super fallible. And so you want to make sure you've got like the full range of that instrument so you can lean back on it. As a performer, you're quite an in-demand soloist both in Sydney and on the cruise ships. What's some advice you can give in regards to building your repertoire and holding a room the way that you do?
It's about reading the room, definitely. I start I usually always start every set off with a song that's got a loop. It's a good warm up, it's a good get the crowd ready. But then basically whatever their teenage years is the songs that are going to hit them the most.
Yeah.
So that's why when I first started doing gigs, everyone was still playing 70s and 80s music, and I was playing 90s music, and it was like there was this breath of fresh air that something new was happening. And so now it's been a few more years, and I sort of think, well, now I have to look at the early noughties as song, like the 2000s, because that's the new 18-year-old, or in America 21-year-olds who are out and partying, and that's what they want to hear. Everyone loves to hear a combination of current and reminiscing things.
Yeah.
And so also reading the room, if it's meant to be background noise, then you don't want the big belty songs that are overpowering.
No.
But if you've got a crowd who's wanting to interact and dance, then upbeat. Like if there's a kid who gets up and dances, I keep the beat happening until you can sort of see they're getting tired, or you want them to leave. Like it's people forget how much control musicians have over how the crowd actually does react.
Absolutely.
It's a give and take. So there's certain songs that I get audience participation, but there's exactly. There's test songs that I do. I find Take Me Home Country Road is a good one to see if people are ready.
Absolutely.
Because people involuntarily just do Take Me Home Country Road, like it's once you've got that, you're like, cool, alright, they're paying attention.
Yeah,
but if you sing it and no one does it, you're kind of like, alright, they're not going to. And you may go through a whole night and you just don't get the crowd who wants to sing along. Yeah. But if I get them singing along, it's great, and they get to participate, and makes the whole thing a lot more fun. So yeah, just like I said, it's the age group that's out there. I often welcome requests as well. So if people come up, even if I don't necessarily know the song that they've requested or the artist they've requested, it gives me an idea of what they do like.
Market research.
Pretty much, yeah. So if someone comes up and asks for anything that's like a 90s band, rock band, then I know I can play any of the other sort of songs that are in that kind of vibe. Or if they come up and they're asking for a Gaga song, or they're asking for this, or Taylor Swift, or they ask for a country song, you start to quickly kind of know what they're interested in. And I've even played gigs where I just went from genre to genre because I could not. I saw a group, started playing a song, nope, that didn't get them. Played another song, nope, and I was jumping genre, I was jumping decades, and then I finally found it's like,
there it
I
is.
found what they want now. Yeah. So no matter where you are, pubs, on the ships or whatever, there's certain times that people are leaving, like if you're playing the Friday and it's after work, there's a time where when the after work crowd is leaving and the partying that night crowd hasn't quite gotten there. So play based on the room.
Yeah. So in other words, build your repertoire out. Don't just have like one genre of music or one decade of music or just the music that you love. Like vary it widely, and then you're going to have the best results.
That reminds me of a common question when I'm setting up, because people love to ask you questions while you're setting up. But the thing that they love to ask is, what do you play? And my response is always, what do you like? Because then they tell me, sometimes they say everything, and I say, that's good, that's what I play. But people tend to want to pigeonhole you too quickly. Yeah. When you sort of explain that you have a big variety and you ask them what they are interested in, you're going to get a responsive crowd.
Absolutely. All right, well, thanks so much for chatting. We also did a cover of a song, because that's kind of how these things go. We have a chat and we sing some, in this case we sing some country, so I'm going to upload that as well. Thanks for sticking around and watching. We'll be back. Hey, mama, rock me.
Huzzah.
Huzzah, I'd say.